Okay. So we're learning the laws of Kiddush. Let's just bring up the Shulchan Aruch on this. Okay. So we're holding, I think it's chapter 77, and it's law number 4 on the laws of Kiddush. So it says like this. Not sure if this is, so make sure that. Okay, here, Rebecca, we're just starting the Kitzur. Okay, so, oops. Hold on, let's share the right page here. Okay, here we are. So like this, we're holding the laws of Kiddush. So it says like this, Gam hanoshim chayavos b'Kiddush. Women are also obligated in the mitzvah of Kiddush, of sanctifying the holiday and Shabbos through Kiddush. Al-Kain, therefore, because they have that obligation as well, women as well, Al-Kain, Yishmu heitiv Kiddush, women should listen carefully to the Kiddush when being recited if they're listening to someone else making Kiddush. Ya'anu Amen, and they should repeat Amen. This applies to anyone listening to Kiddush, not just to women, but women or men. This here he's assuming that men would make their own Kiddush. Aval Baruchu Baruch Shemai Lo Yoimru. But we don't say Baruchu Baruch Shemai that we usually say after a blessing. We'll see in a second why. Just stay silent until the end of the blessing, hey Aaron, and we say Amen. The cotton. So that's women. Women have an obligation for Kiddush, and therefore they have to listen to the Kiddush carefully. And so to anyone else who's listening to Kiddush from someone else. The cotton afiluhu ben shleisha esrei shana. And if you have a 13-year-old boy, im eine yadua shehevi shtei saris, if we don't know if he has matured physically yet, eine moitzias isha, he should not be the one to be motzi to make the Kiddush for the woman. Meaning to say is that we've applied the year 13, that person comes as a bar mitzvah at 13, halachically, a boy comes into age when he shows the physical signs of maturity. And because the woman is obligated in the mitzvah of Kiddush, so better that if it's a young child who does not, we don't know for sure 100% if he's matured yet, so better he should not make Kiddush for the woman. In that case, better the woman should make Kiddush on her own. So this custom that some people have, if the husband's out of the house or for whatever reason, that a young child makes Kiddush for the wife, for the mother, or for the woman in the house, that's not the way it should be. And if she doesn't know how to make Kiddush, she can't read or what have you, is Taimari Makatan Mila Mila, means if she's in a situation where the boy can make Kiddush, but we don't know if he's 13 yet, so she should say together with her son or the boy, hold on, Aaron, word for word, the Kiddush. V'gam im shemayas, let's just finish the law and you can ask the questions. V'gam im shemayas as a Kiddush min habal. What about if, okay, we're talking about her husband is making Kiddush, or any other man, meaning someone who's certainly matured. Yoiser Nachin, who best would be instead of listening to the Kiddush, better to say it quietly with the person, the husband making the Kiddush. He quotes, look in the Duggal Mervava, which is a commentary, and of course the Shulchan Aruch of the Tanya of the Alter Rebbe. Im yesh kama balabatim bayis echad, if there's many different people in the house, how do you do in such a situation? Not just one male, so to say, alpha guy. Is echis nahag b'kiddush ayin l'kaman, then we'll learn about that later in Kuf Lamed Hey. Okay, before we read the comments, footnotes, you had a question?
Yeah, you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, so when my son, he's 21 now, but when he was 13, he wouldn't legally. He said I can't do it before he was 13, but once he got bar mitzvah, he's a hazan. He likes being a hazan, so we let him say the Kiddush for Saturday night, and I mean Friday night and Saturday afternoon. We let him do it, and he continues to do it whenever he's here.
Now that he's 20, it's obviously not a
But
problem.
we did at 13, so I just want to know: did we do something wrong?
First, there's nothing is wrong. He's just saying it depends. Could be he matured at 13 if he was already physically gone through puberty, and he's so therefore he would be okay. The question that they have is a lot of 13-year-olds today are still not 100% of gone matured yet to what's be considered halachically a man. And because the woman has an obligation, and surely you have an obligation as the man in the house. But it's always preferable it's okay for having your son to make kiddush. A lot of people would do if children like to make kiddush, is have them make their own kiddush after you would make kiddush. So there's nothing wrong with having two people making kiddush. It's customary. You could have sometimes many people making kiddush now. If you want to give the attention and care, so you can make that everyone sits at the table and pays attention, doesn't just run off to go wash while your son would be standing making kiddush. But it's also okay, unless you really want to give him the honor of being the one leading the kiddush only. But it's okay to have you make the kiddush, then he would do the kiddush after
There's
you.
two things. First, my Hebrew is not that great, and his singing is so much better that even if I knew great Hebrew, his singing is so much better, even at 13. So I'd rather hear him than anyone had
Okay.
to.
So in such a situation, again, like he said in the Shulchan Aruch, maybe to say it quietly with him, but it's totally fine if he now that he's mature, for him to be the one motzi everyone in Kiddush, especially if he could pronounce it better and recite it better.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. So that's a footnote number 19. Women are also obligated to recite Kiddush. So see Maseches Brachos, the Talmud chapter page 20b. Therefore, when necessary, a woman may say Kiddush and thereby exempt men. So it's also possible because the woman's obligated, she could also be mitzi a man, but they should not do so in public because we don't do these things in public for laws of tznius, of modesty. But because a woman has an obligation, she also could, just like a man, could exempt the woman could exempt the man. Footnote number 20. It's talking about why don't we say Baruch Hu uvaruch Shemo after the mention God's name? So he says like this: for it is an interruption of the bracha. So says the Degel Mirvava and the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch 6:9. Many poskim maintain that it is permitted to say it. He quotes the Chikri Lev, Beis Aaron, see Birkei Yosef, and also he quotes the Maharam Shik. Our custom is not to say it, but one need not protest when others say it. So sometimes people get like, shh, don't say. Let each person do their custom. So although it's not our custom to say Baruch Hu Baruch Shmei after the mentioning God's name, we won't have to hush anyone. Yes, Aaron.
What do those two words mean?
We say that, you see when someone's mentioning a blessing, you say Baruch Atah Hashem, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. They say
Oh,
that
yeah, 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 yeah.
we don't say that in the Kiddush when someone's making Kiddush.
I
Okay,
never even
mine,
thought about it.
yeah. Everything has to be thought about to cover all bases. So he says like this: a minor, even if he's 13, not found in all editions. So this part where we say a minor who's not yet 100% matured should not be motzi a woman. We don't find this stipulation of the law in all editions of the Kitzur. Okay. 22, he says, okay, quotes the source. Quotes the source. Okay, here we're talking about number 24. Footnote number 24 is it's still proper that the woman, even if she's being exempt by the man in the house, to repeat word by word. So he says, why? This applies to a situation where she does not understand the words. Okay. So says the Shari Chuvit. So because I was actually wondering, we don't see the custom that women will say quietly the Kiddush on Friday night if her husband or the man in the house is saying it, or anyone else for that matter. We see if I have Havdalah sometimes, And he says this is only applicable. The Shari Tshuva says this is only in a case where the woman doesn't understand the Hebrew, so she's not understanding what's being said. So by saying the words, she's actually making the blessing because the words are the blessing. Whereas if she's listening and she doesn't understand, it could be a complication. Okay, so that's that law. So women are also obligated. Okay, last week we learned about the types of wine, right? The red wine and the grape juice and all that. Now we're talking about wine that is, I guess, quality wine. However, the wine, the problem is if the wine is not, it's spoiled. Not, it means the brand is okay. It's just the actual wine has gone off. So yayin shin is chametz if a wine turned vinegary, right? Everyone experiences that. Emekachin love. One should not make kiddush on that kind of wine. So too v'chein yayin sheish le'yirei. If you open up the bottle and it doesn't smell right, afal pishalei is chametz, even if it hasn't turned into vinegar. Elireicha v'taima yayin, but it still smells and tastes like wine, but the smell is off. Shemevarchen lav bar guffen, that you would still, it means if it turns 100% into vinegar, no longer is it required to make the blessing of hagafen on it. So therefore, surely you can't make Kiddush on it. Here we're talking about a situation where it tastes and smells like wine, but it has a bad smell. So you still have to make hagafen on it. It smells because it was in a dirty vessel, whatever that would mean. Or if it has too much of the smell of the barrel. Is Eimekachin love, it's not a quality wine that one should make Kiddush on. It means it's not halgafen, still has to be made. But don't choose this wine as a wine to make Kiddush on, it's not respectful. V'chein yayin she'amad megula ezesha. So too, wine that's been opened, uncovered, for a certain amount of time, where the halacha goes into the ideas that we discussed about certain laws that are safety issues. In those days, if they left certain drinks open or foods open, then they could be poisonous by different insects or snakes. So he says, "Afagav de'idna lav kabdenon agilui." Even though today we're not so concerned with snakes leaving venom in open glasses of drink, but nevertheless, one should not make Kiddush on that. Emekad should love mishum hakriveyu na lifechasecha hayirtzecha or hayisapanecha. It says if you were to offer it now to your governor, would he be pleased with you? It means is it pleasing to offer such kind of wine that it says in halacha one should really not drink it? Okay. So better not to use that wine. Next is yesh yain sheyesh by kamachim. Right? Sometimes you see the little flour, it's a little flaky, the wine. So yesh l'saninoi, then you should strain it. Then you could make kiddush. If you can't strain it, then you can make kiddush as is. But if it has like a white cream, the mistama pog tamoy, that's obviously a sign that it's lost its flavor. Again, these are what we're talking about over here is that, so to say, the brand itself is fine, because in the last week we spoke about the type of wine we should use, try to use red wine, not white wine, the question of using yayin simukim, raisin wine, grape juice. Here we're talking about the bottle, the brand is fine, it's just the actual bottle's questionable. Okay. So he said, and that actually the question a lot of times, you have a bottle of wine that you open 1 week and you leave it out and you didn't finish it, you want to make Kiddush on it. If everything's okay with the bottle, it doesn't smell and what have you, doesn't turn vinegary, that's fine. But once it goes off, one should not make Kiddush on it. He says like this, 25, if it turns sour, this applies in the case where, he says, where it is so sour that people refrain from drinking it. That also happens. It just really tastes awful. Number 26. What is it? Okay, he has a quote of the hold on, Aaron, the quote of the barrel, the smell of the barrel. What does this mean that we're not strict today for open cups of drink? For there is no likelihood that a poisonous snake might have drunk from it. If it drank from it, then he would leave venom. Today, we're not concerned with that, again, in most places. Still today, people do not drink drinks that were left uncovered or other of those laws that we're not learning about now, but That's but here he mentions that we're not careful about it. Okay, we're talking about what's 28. He says it should not be used for Kiddush. Why? It says see Magen Avram 272. If it remained uncovered only a short time, it may be used since wine was hard to come by in those times. So you just to disregard wine because you left it uncovered for a few minutes is not an issue. And also, people are not particular about it either. So because we're not so particular about this opening, and because it's expensive, or they didn't have wine, so therefore you don't have to be too careful. Okay, footnote number 29. He says he quotes the pasuk in Malachi that we wouldn't serve wine that has been uncovered, since it's not good enough for a human ruler. It certainly is unsatisfactory to first serving Hashem. If it turns powdery, this also is not in all editions that you could restrain it and use it, etc. Yes, so footnote number 31, he says, and then it can be used for Kiddush if you strain it. Shulchan Aruch Rav, but others hold that it cannot be used. You still shouldn't use it if it becomes powdery or floury. Footnote number 32 is, if it quotes the Shulchan Aruch Rav, means the Alter Rebbe, that if it has a white kind of film on it, then it's a bad sign on the quality of the wine. Yes, Aaron.
Okay, so you pour the wine, you haven't tasted it because you have to say the blessing first. It smells fine. You say the blessing, and now you taste it, and it tastes off or it tastes vinegary. It's not good. Do you have to redo it or get another bottle?
That's an excellent question. I guess it depends really if you could. I assume I have to check. It's a good question. If you can make a hagafen on it, it happens. By the way, your question is a good question because it happens all the time. It's not just a question that a theoretical question. It literally happens all the time. You think the bottle is good, or you hope it's good, and doesn't turn out to be good. I'd assume the law would be that if you still would make a hagafen on it. So you made the Kiddush. If it's something that you can't even make a guffin on, you can't make the blessing a guffin, you probably have to make Kiddush again. But let me check on that and get back to you guys next week on that.
Yeah, 'cause it happens to me once in a blue moon.
I don't know. It happens. It happens, sometimes. And also, it's not everyone, not everyone's opinion of the wine being off is equal. Sometimes people are more careful. What one person calls off wine is just that it's not tasting at its best. Okay. Law number 6. This is this is a big question, and people are more careful about this on Passover, about the laws of what's called boiled wine and non-boiled wine. Let's just get a little background. So in the wine that was used in the temple was non-boiled wine called non-mevushal. Also, there's the problem is that non-cooked wine was the kind of wine that was used by people that were worshiping idols, and they would also in the ceremony of the idol worshiping, they would pour wine somewhere or another for the avodah zarah, for the idol. So therefore, we have very strict laws when it comes to wine. Everyone knows that grape, an ingredient of grape in a product makes it problematic. And also, if a Gentile or someone who doesn't observe Shabbos touches a bottle of wine or an open bottle of wine, we're talking about an open bottle of wine that possibly they've shucken it or used it for avodah zarah, even if it wasn't avodah zarah, but it's called the ayin stam. We don't use wine that's been non-cooked, non-boiled wine that's been touched by a Gentile or someone who doesn't keep Shabbos even. So most people will prefer to have boiled wine, although the quality is not so good. So they shouldn't have this issue if you're at a restaurant or if you have people keeping Shabbos at your home or what have you. So the problem is, but what is the better quality wine if you can? Should you use mevushal wine that's boiled or not? So here he goes into that question. One can make Kiddush even on boiled wine. And today, any kosher bottle of wine will have description if it's been mevushal or not. Again, if you have a non-boiled bottle of wine and it's been opened and left in the house and there's a non-Jew in the house, you're not permitted to drink, not even drink the wine, forget make Kiddush on the wine. So therefore people will maybe have only boiled wine in the house, but it's a more diligent performance of the mitzvah if you use non-boiled wine, because they also use that in the temple. So he says like this, nevertheless, even though it's preferable to use non-boiled wine, you still can use boiled wine, or on yain sheish dvash, a kind of sugary wine, sweet wine. Hold on, Aaron. Yesh ayimrim, there are those who say, better not to make Kiddush on yain mevushal, boiled wine, kivan de einin ruin mizbeach. One cannot use that for sacrifices in the temple. Therefore, the Kitzur says, if possible, try to find non-boiled wine. Okay, again, depending on the seating arrangements and everything that's in your house. When it comes to Shabbos, or especially comes Pesach, right? Pesach, people with the 4 cups, people try to find non-mevushal wine, non-boiled wine. But the problem with non-boiled wine is, again, if you don't finish it, or if someone's in your house, is not even someone who's Jewish and not Shabbos observant, should not really be touching non-mevushal wine. And because of that, you have to take everything into consideration. Although there's the Yesh Omrim, he does quote someone who says that better not to use that wine, but the halacha is you can use that wine. So better to use that wine than to have a situation where you can't use any wine because the wine has been exposed or touched by a non-Jew. Yes, Aaron. Now I cannot hear you. We can't hear you. No.
Hold on one
Okay,
second.
now we got you.
I
got you. We hear you.
Okay, so my question to you is, I usually, when I go to my parents, buy non-boiled wine because that's what's easily found kosher. My question is, my parents don't keep Shabbos, so what do I do?
You should not bring non-boiled. If your parents are coming to your home or you're going to their home, use boiled wine.
So definitely can't use regular wine.
Better not. No.
Okay.
Okay, so he says over here that it's not fit for the altar. The Rosh is one of the Rishon and one of the commentaries. He maintains that boiling improves the wine and is therefore kosher for Kiddush, even though it is not fit for the altar. Nevertheless, it upgrades the wine. Not all wine connoisseurs would agree with the Rosh. The Ramah upholds our custom of using it when it is superior to other available wine. So sometimes if you have a cheap bottle of non-boiled wine or a quality bottle of boiled wine, the Ramah, again, that's the Ashkenazic authority of halacha, says better to use the boiled wine, which is quality. So Aaron, you have a based on the Ramah, the best solution would be to spend a few extra dollars on wine. So you're buying a nice bottle of wine, even though it's been boiled. But if they are of equal quality, you should be stringent and use non-boiled wine, says the Mishnah Brewer. So the Mishnah Brewer, Chofetz Chaim, says that if you have 2 equal bottles, better use a bottle of non-boiled. However, if the quality of the boiled wine is better, go with quality over, so to say, the ability of boiled or non-boiled. So that will answer your question, Aaron. So you could keep old opinions by buying a nice bottle of boiled wine. Okay. What type of cup do we use to make the Kiddush on? It has to be a complete cup, not broken or chipped, and clean. You can't use a dirty cup for Kiddush. All the laws that we've learned about of the type of cup that has to be used for the Kiddush, for the benching, is the same cup we have to use for Kiddush. And look before in chapter 45, in the Sif Gimel and Sif Daled. Yesh gam b'kois shal Kiddush bein b'yom bein b'layla. Yesh gam b'kois shal Kiddush bein b'yom bein b'layla. One should use it says the wording is a bit off. So sorry, just to keep out the parentheses. So he says the laws of Birchas Hamazon, the same laws apply to kosher Kiddush both by day and both at night. The same thing applies to the cup used after Shabbos to make the Havdalah. So basically, in a way that's permissible, we just said about uncovered wine, or you could pour the wine back in and cover the wine. So some people have the custom, you make Kiddush on a large cup at night and have leftovers. Of course, you have to add a bit, so it should be a full cup, but use from the leftovers of the wine at night for the day. Okay, so let's see footnote number 36, I believe, is the only one we have in this one. And he just quotes the authorities on that. I just wanted to mention, while we're talking about the cup, before we go to then move on. So it says, okay, using grape juice, we've covered that. We could close that. How much wine is one required to drink? Yes, Barbara. Your mic is up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm just a little confused. If you make Kiddush on Friday night with a large glass of wine and then you refill it, you would cover that up and just leave it out overnight? Or,
listen, there's different ways to deal with it. You could have you could cover it with a cup, or cover it with a plate or a napkin, a rubber band napkin. You could put it in the fridge, cover this, so you could pour it into a closed bottle in a way that's permissible. So it's not we don't pour wine that's been drunken from just right in back into the bottle if it's other wine in there. You would first pour in a little extra wine to kind of elevate the wine to as if it has not been drunk, and then pour it back in. But there's different ways of doing it. But I guess the easiest way may be to have a cover for the cup, or some sort of covering, even if it's makeshift, so you could use the extra for the next Kiddush.
okay, thank
So how much do you have to drink? So the idea, you have to drink Malay Lugmov. You have to drink as much as wine as you could fit into one side of your cheek. If you filled up one side of your cheek, not both cheeks, just moved all the liquid to one side of your cheek, that's how much one has to drink. Now that's in the case where your cheek doesn't carry as much as a revius. How big is the revius? We'll see in a second. There's difference of opinion of what is the revius, what's the amount you have to make Kiddush on. But how much the person who's, not every person, the person who's making Kiddush has to drink Malay Lugmav, which is an amount it would take to fill to fill one cheek. I think he brings down over here. That's the next question. How do I make this smaller here? Hold on a second. So here he brings down, how much is a revius? How much is the amount that the cup has to be? That's a big question. A lot of people, especially we're coming up now to Pesach, and there's the 4 cups, and people want to drink wine if they don't have grapes, if they don't want to drink grape juice, and you want to know how large the cup has to be. So there's different poskim. So Chaim No, which Chabad goes with, says a revius of wine required to make Kiddush on is 81 millimeters, or 2.73 ounces. But if you look over here, it could get as high as 4 ounces. So there's different opinions. Chabad goes with Chaim No, which is 81 millimeters, 2.73 ounces. The Chazon Ish, the shear of the Chazon Ish is 150 millimeters. That's quite a bit more than 81 millimeters for the size of the cup. Okay, so now let's go back. So we're holding law number 7. Sorry, we did that. So law number 8. We all know this law, that when one makes Kiddush, we have a Shabbos covering over the bread, over the 2 loaves of bread that we break after the Kiddush. Hold on, Rebecca. Even if he's going to make Kiddush, or she's going to make Kiddush on Challah, we learned that you can make Kiddush on Challah, still it should be covered. So there's 2 reasons we cover the Kiddush. One would say, one reason is we cover we cover the Challah. One reason we cover the Challah is, like we're going to see in a second, not to shame the bread, that we're first, so to say, blessing the wine before the bread, and bread is a specialty food, and according to halacha, lechem is special. Therefore, the bread could be offended. So that's only if you're passing over the bread. But what happens if you're making kiddush on bread? So why do you have to cover it? So there's another reason. It should be mechusas. It should be covered. B'shas kiddush zeichel aman chay mechusa betal. Just like the man, which we know, one of the things that we know that there is that the idea of 2 loaves of bread is that the 2 portions of the man that we eat. That we were given in the desert for Shabbos. So to cover it, like the man came covered with the dew. Both on bottom and top. Therefore, we have the breadboard. On top of the breadboard, or the challah board, we put the challah. So it's like the man came in with tal on the bottom and had dew on the bottom, the man, and then it was sandwiched in with dew. So too, we should have a breadboard, a challah board, and the challah, and then we put the covering on top. Yes, Rebecca. Rebecca, you wanted to ask something?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot to unmute. I don't know if you're still gonna get to this, but sometimes at a Kiddush, like they give out like shot glasses full of grape juice, kind of. So if the person making Kiddush has like a proper Kiddush cup, then you could be yotze with the person if you just drink the shot glass, I think. But if, let's say, the person doesn't have enough, like if they're not using a Kiddush cup, the person making Kiddush, if they're just using one of those small shot glasses, then like if everyone drinks it, then are we yotze, or no, you have to use more wine or grape juice to make Kiddush?
No, first of all, we're going to learn in a second about if about everyone taking part of the wine. If you can have wine, or if they can't drink the wine that they're drinking. We're talking about the person who makes the kiddush should drink a malay lugmav, has to drink the amount that fills up the one cheek. Everyone else doesn't have to drink that much.
So the person making Kiddush, he just has to have 2.73 ounces.
Well, no, you don't have to drink the full revius. Some people are makbid to finish the full cup, but you don't. We're going to see there are cases you have to drink a revius. Of that's if you're in the question where if you're in a meal or not.
But does he have to be like holding in his Kiddush cup a certain amount?
The Kiddush cup itself has to be a cup that we're going to see why some people are makel. If you go into certain synagogues by day, you'll see that people make Kiddush on smaller than a revius of whiskey.
Right.
And there's a source for that. It's not so simple, but there's a source for that because they don't want to waste the whiskey, and the quality, so to say, of the whiskey, of the alcohol level in a shot glass kind of makes up of the revius. That's kind of the thinking. But generally, the cup has to be the size of a revius, and there's different opinions how big a revius is. Means
Okay.
which is, like I said, it's the 88 millimeters or 2.75, I think, ounces we just said before. Reb Chaim Nas says. Others say it's bigger. That's what the kiddush has to be made on. How much do you have to drink of the kiddush is malay lugmav. Malay lugmav means the amount that you could fit into your one side of your cheeks, which is
So
usually less than a revius.
so even if it's not the rove kos, if the person's not drinking the majority of the kos that they just made Kiddush on, they're just doing malo lugmav, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. So you're asking a question. What happens if someone makes it on a goblet, right? Some people like to make huge kiddush cups. And so it's still there. We're going to see this. It is always better to do rav kos, but as far as the minimum amount has to be malay lugmav, which is the cheek. In the case where sometimes you do have to do the full revius. In the case, let's say where your cheek is bigger than a revius, you don't have to drink more than a revius.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron.
Okay, couple of questions. The one basic question, my daughter doesn't like wine. We've heard from a few people that only the person saying the blessing actually has to drink it. So my son has plenty of wine. There's enough in there. You don't have to worry about the amount, but he'll drink it. She'll just take a little, like a tiny sip. It wouldn't even count, just to say she tried it. But she hates it. And then my son will drink the amount, but they told her she doesn't have to drink any of it. Now, my other question is, and I'm going to use Passover as an example. I'm diabetic. So 1 year I drank all 4 cups of wine like you're supposed to, all the 3.5 ounces, whatever they said in the OU book. And I had a reaction to all that sugar. So now my question is, so now I don't drink any full cup. I just take, a big gulp, whatever. It's not even half the cup because I mean, especially before the meal, because I have nothing to against the sugar. So 2 cups might make me shaky. So I don't know what should I do as a minimum. And on Shabbos, it's not so much of a problem because it's only 1 cup and I drink a small amount.
Okay. Like you were doing until now is absolutely fine. To just drink a Malo Lugmov if you can, which is the gulp, and that's that. Maybe better use a smaller cup.
I do, but I
So
want to make sure that I'm doing it properly.
yeah. So if as long as you have a cup that has the minimum or revius, whatever shear that you use, if you're using the OU's amount, so then go with a smaller cup over a bigger cup. So at least if you could drink more of the wine than less, but do not drink more than a gulp if it's going to be damaging to your health.
All right, it is the one year I was shaking and I
Yeah.
was like,
No, absolutely not. Barbara.
That was actually my question, because being on medication, that's the other thing. And especially driving at night, coming back from shul, because we're gonna have our Shabbat on Saturday evening. And so I don't wanna be drinking alcohol and knowing I'm going to be taking my medication and stuff. So that was my question. All right, thank you.
I know, but also if you could make it on grape juice. Grape juice can be used. It's better to use wine, but if you again anything that gets into a medical situation, you're not supposed to. That's God forbid. When I remember a member of my family had diabetes, not diabetes, had hepatitis sometime before Passover, and then my Rosh Hashanah told me that someone who's just getting over hepatitis, you're not supposed to have any alcohol. He says so much so. He says she shouldn't even drink the 4 cups of even grape juice, because grape juice has very, very, very little bit of alcohol, and that could be damaging. And he told me not she shouldn't drink it. So you have so again, when it comes to health issues, obviously that comes first. Tzvi mentioned in the chat, what about dry wine again? Tzvi, I don't know diabetics.
dry wine has the least amount of sugar.
Yeah.
And yeah, I try to drink it, but I'm at my brother-in-law's house. I can't tell him what to buy. And he buys Manischewitz. It's like a tradition. But
In
even drinking grape juice is worse than drinking wine because it has the most amount of sugar.
Yeah. So you have to do what's again. You have to make sure you're looking after your health. Okay.
But dry wine is the best wine. If you get totally dry wine, there's very little sugar in it.
Okay, but so again, Aaron, you have the ability, if you want. Again, I'm not sure of your dynamics, to bring your own wine to the table.
I could. I mean, I have to let everyone drink it if they want it. Can't
Okay,
just
I hear what you're saying. Okay. All right. Okay, now we come to the question that we just spoke about. Hamikadosh, the one who makes the Kiddush. Yishte min hakos l'chol hapachas kimelo lugmav b'li hefsek. You have to drink without interruption at least a full cheek of wine. So right away, just to get that out of the way, he says in footnote number 39, depending on the size of your cheek, obviously, but if most, but it must be most of revius, rov revius. See the bir halacha. Okay, obviously if you have a tiny mouth. Okay, so he says like this. Umitzvah, in continuation, mitzvah shitamu kulam mikay shabracha. This is again, Aaron asked about his daughter. Everyone should try to taste, not drink a full gulp, to taste from a cup of blessing. You don't have to, but there's a concept of drinking from a kos shabracha, a kos of blessing. If someone does not drink the wine because of I think it's a printing mistake, it should be neder, a vow, or because it's damaging for whatever reason, health-wise, ein loy lekadish al hayayin al smach shishto masubim is good enough that the people around him are drinking, and you don't have to taste from the wine. Don't force yourself to do anything that's unhealthy or to violate a vow that you've made. What does it mean, a vow? I know people here that have taken upon themselves to be strict, like a nazir. So they doing that, they wouldn't. I don't know what they do on Pesach, but they wouldn't. They don't touch any kind of wine. Okay. Or again, alcoholic issues or something like that. Okay, footnote number 40. What is it talking about? Everyone should try to taste. It's a mitzvah for everyone to taste. So he says the Shulchan Aruch quotes. He quotes the Shulchan Aruch, meaning the Beis Yosef, I believe 2271, Law 14. Even though it's a mitzvah, it's not as important as the mitzvah that requires the one who recites the Kiddush to drink a cheek full of wine. It means you can't compare the obligation of the person making Kiddush to someone who's listening to Kiddush. Therefore, if there's not sufficient wine, he should not give the others the taste of the wine. Here's a good question. Let's say you have a very limited amount of wine. And if the person making Kiddush were to drink a full cheekful, it would not leave enough wine for everyone to taste. So, in such a case, better for the person who made the Kiddush to drink the full cheekful than for others to participate in the tasting of the wine, because that's more important. Footnote number 41 is, if it's harmful, so you should make Kiddush on wine. He says, the Magen Avram, the Chai Adam, the Mishnah Brewer, but Ramah Derech HaChaim and Shulchan Aruch Harav permit it. What are we talking about here? I believe this must be talking about a situation of either you don't want it or damaging, if you want to take it, even if it is damaging, or vow. Not sure what the footnote number 41 is going on. That says that the Ramah Derech HaChaim, the Shulchan Aruch, permitted. Permitted, it must be in a case where it should not make Kiddush on wine, but if you want to make Kiddush on wine anyways, it's permitted. Okay. Let's do one more law and we'll stop. Yayin shal Kiddush, when one uses wine for Kiddush, the fish who mitzarchi asuda, because it's part of the meal, it's how we open the meal. Einay toin bracha l'achrov, we don't make a bracha achrona. You don't say the al hagefen after one drinks Kiddush. We go and wash, and then we continue eating. The birchas hamazayin poi tar toi, he is exempted by the benching afterwards that wraps up the whole meal. It includes the after blessing for the wine used for Kiddush. But there are opinions that say no, because it's before the washing, and even though it's it's definitely connected to the meal, but it's not part of the meal, and therefore the benching would not include the wine made on Kiddush. So what should you do? One should be diligent. Make Kiddush or drink wine after the meal, kind of wrapping around the meal. So you don't make, there's no opinion to make a bracha achroina ala gefen after Kiddush itself. But a way you do kind of be diligent with the opinion who says the benching wouldn't exempt the Kiddush before the wine that was drunk by Kiddush before the meal. So you could drink wine after the meal, after you made Birchas Hamazon, and then you make ala gefen, so therefore that covers also the wine before the meal. Okay, that's in the footnotes, and then anyone has final questions, we can ask. And this is the case even if you don't drink wine during the meal. Even though no wine was consumed during the meal, one would think, if I drink wine during the meal, so the Kiddush, the Geffen before the meal kind of included the Geffen during the meal, so then the Birchas Hamazon would be covering the Kiddush before, because it kind of drags with it, the wine drags with it, the wine during the meal takes the wine from before the meal. What happens if a person has Kiddush, doesn't drink any wine throughout the meal, and now he or she benches, and there's so does that take care of the bracha achrona for the wine? The answer is yes, according to this opinion. However, there are poskim, and he quotes poskim means halachic authorities that say that doesn't cover, the benching doesn't cover the wine used for Kiddush before the meal, and therefore if you want to be careful, so you can drink wine after the meal. And then he says to make the wine after the meal, what he calls it, better maybe if you make Kiddush on wine. If you make benching on wine, so then you can make a bracha achrein, and then of course it includes the bench, the kiddush of the wine. All right, any questions before we wrap up? Yes, Barbara.
So if you do Kiddush on the challah and you're benching afterwards, obviously you're not going to, you haven't done Kiddush over wine, so do you adjust the benching afterwards?
No, if you make kiddush if you make kiddush on bread, and you didn't drink any wine during the meal, so obviously you wouldn't have any. Then there's nothing to make benching on the wine. There's no wine been drunk. And if you make kiddush on bread and had some wine during the meal, so even though you would make a hagafen during the meal, but then that would still the benching would cover the wine during the meal. So there's no opinion that says wine during the meal is not covered by benching. The question is the wine prior to the meal, even though it's part of kiddush. But if you made kiddush if you made kiddush for whatever reason on bread, and then had wine or didn't have wine during the meal, but then drank wine after the meal, obviously you would have to make a bracha for the wine drunken after the meal.
Okay, and sorry about my dogs. They bark every time I talk.
Actually, I didn't hear them. Yes, Aaron.
Thank you.
Okay, 2 questions. If you said your blessing over the wine, so sometimes, especially during Shabbos, during the holidays, so when Passover comes, we'll buy better wine than we would even the good wine we buy for Shabbos. We buy even better. And then
When is this?
my say like Passover on Shabbos,
Yeah,
Shabbos of Passover. So we'll buy even a better wine because
Yeah.
it's a holiday and a Shabbos. So my wife will take like a gulp of after the blessing, but then she wants to milk the wine during the meal. Like we have a really big cup, like a regular wine cup that you would if you're having a fancy meal at a restaurant. So then she won't guzzle it down. She'll sip it throughout the meal. Is there anything special or just
Again, when your wife drinks the wine after from the kiddush that you made, so the bracha hagafen you made would also include her. She doesn't have to make a hagafen on the wine if she doesn't choose to, and that hagafen would, just like by listening to your or your son's kiddush, just like it worked for him to drink wine throughout the meal, so too she doesn't have to make a blessing. However, and also it include the bracha achroina, the benching would also close up her drinking of the wine during the meal and before the meal. If she chooses to drink wine, obviously after the meal, then she has to make a blessing, like anytime you drink wine after a meal, after the benching.
Now, my second question is, and this comes up a lot, my wife says we have to pull all the wine off the table except for the wine we're making the blessing for. Is this true? Why is it? Explain.
Before the meal?
No, we're doing Shabbos. So regular Shabbos, and we pour the cup of wine. Then she says, close it and take it off the table because we can't make blessings on the whole bottle as well as the cup. So she says, and I think a lot of people do this. It's not just my wife saying this. They remove it. They put it. It's not on the dinner table. The bottle.
I understand the concern about not having if you're making kiddush on, because there is such a concept we're going to learn in halacha soon. Let's address this question next week, because we're learning next week. We'll be learning about open wine on the table. If wine on the table could be used, and you plan to drink it, if there's something wrong with the wine that you made kiddush on. Rebecca.
Yeah, 2 questions. So let's say I make kiddush on grape juice, and then in the middle of the meal, somebody offers me to try their wine, and I want to try it. Is that okay?
That's a question in brachas in general. If there's other wines brought to a person after they made hagafen, and there's the idea that one doesn't make a bracha hagafen again, but you make a tova meitiv.
What's a tova meitiv?
A tova meitiv is like blessing God for the goodness in the world. So when you have a better, when you're upgrading a wine during the meal, so you can't make really another hagafen, but to show your appreciation, what are blessings?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but so on Passover, they always have the one we do the 4 cups on, but during the meal, he brings a whatever it is, fancier or not fancier, he brings a different wine to bring at the meal. So do we
No,
have to say
again, I've not seen so many people really use that custom to make a tova meitiv. I mean, it's not a custom. It's brought down in Shulchan Aruch. It's brought down in the Rambam. It's brought down in the laws of blessings. That one makes a tova meitiv if a better quality wine. But these questions are really asked: what does it mean a better quality? What does it mean upgrade? The Rambam quotes different colored wines, different types of wines, but not every price tag on a bottle of wine is an indication of its quality. As we all know about everything in life that we buy. So again, there's nothing wrong to make a tova meitiv if you feel that the blessing of tova meitiv is thanking God for the goodness that He's done. We don't go around saying Hatov Meitiv all the time.
But you wouldn't.
All I was going to say real
nothing.
quick is that it's just different wine.
Okay, difference not really an upgrade. Yes,
Yeah,
Rebecca.
but for me, like if I went from grape juice to wine, like I wouldn't make another bracha, right?
You wouldn't have to make another hagafen because you make a hagafen on grape juice, but Hatov Meitiv is something you can make. Wine is definitely an upgrade from grape juice.
Got it. Okay. And for the seders, like I don't do very well with alcohol. Like, is it okay to use grape juice, or is it better to use like a joyvin, like a sweet wine with a wine with like a very low alcohol content?
Everything is depending on the person. If it's not going to work for you, or you're going to get sick, or you're going to other things, it's obviously better to just use the grape juice. Many people who don't want to take or can't take or have a low tolerance for alcohol will initially start off with a very low level alcohol wine. You could find the sweet ones, the dry ones. They're very innovative today, what they've made for people for the 4 cups. Preferably is always wine, but it definitely, if it's in a situation that it's not good, it's definitely okay to make Kiddush on grape juice and the 4 cups and grape
For
juice.
the 4 cups. Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Laila Tov, good Shabbos. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Are we going to meet next week? We are, right?
Yeah, there's no reason we should meet next week.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.